Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video we are going to install the network rack so I can put all my servers and network equipment in that and then make it solar powered. So let me switch the camera over and show you what the network rack looks like. Okay, so this is the network rack. It's hard to get on camera because I have to back up so much, but currently I have my server up on this shelf and the battery backup for the server is here. The battery's only capable of running the server for about 2-3 minutes, but that's okay because the only time it's really needed is when it's switching from line power to solar. I'll go in more detail about that once I get everything set up, or everything in the rack, and I can show you on the computer. But for this video, we're going to focus on putting the server, battery backup, transfer switch. This is an automatic transfer switch, and I'll go into detail about that. I also have HP switch PoE with gigabit ports. But yeah, I can put everything in this cabinet. I got the cabinet for free. They were throwing it away. Whoever owned it previously didn't know how to use it properly. So you have this front rail you mount your equipment on, and then it has this middle rail. This is designed for like if you have switches or something that don't need to go back all the way, you bolt it to this. Well, they cut out a portion of it because they were probably putting in servers, and for clearance to reach all the way to the back, they cut it. So I don't need this part. Everything I'm going to use is going to mount up properly. So I'm going to take these rails out, these center rails, because they just unbolt, and we'll use the rack properly. So that's the first thing I need to do, and then we can take everything off the shelf over here, take everything down. This network switch is coming out, so I can clean up this mess a little bit, and we can get this guy in place and start actually having solar powered lab. Like the whole point, well, one of the main points of putting solar in. So I'm going to put the camera on a tripod and get to work. Alright, now that I got the center post removed and I can put servers in there properly, I'm going to move the rack out of the way, take everything off this shelf and move this shelf out of the way. I had a temporary exhaust tunnel set up, and I had a USB fan in there that was pointing the hot air out. My plan is to utilize the back portion of this rack. I'm going to probably tape off these vents so the air is forced to go up, and I'll probably put a couple fans up top through this mesh, and then maybe build a like a wooden stack or something so I can move the air out. And then in the winter time, I might put like a vent on it or something so I can actually pull the air out and push it into the room. I'll figure that out later, but for today, we're just going to put everything in here and get it functional. So I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod and get everything out of the way, and so I can start putting things back together. All right. All right, so I left the heat duct or whatever you want to call it. I left it there because for right now I'll just drape it over top of the rack so I can push the hot air out. Words are hard. I did take down the networking stuff. I'll have to rerun and clean that up. It's going to fit there pretty good. Swept up a little bit. So now it's time to put the server in place, or put the rack in place, and we can start mounting stuff in it. And I can finally use that shelf for something other than random collection of server stuff. Actually use it for tools and organization and stuff. So anyway, I am going to move that. I can't move these two cords yet. This one goes to the box fan that's up there that pulls all the hot air out of the shop that's above the tarp level. And that's what we're pushing all the heat from the servers up there. And this one right here, this was the only thing that runs off of line power, off of my provider. And that actually goes to my AC over here. So I can't unplug that yet. I'm slowly getting it more and more on solar, but for right now, that's the last thing I need to take off. I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod, get the rack over there, and show you what we have when it's done. Okay, so I have the rack in place. I measured out enough room so I can put another battery bank here, and I still have enough room to open up the front door on the network rack, server rack. Obviously, this will have to be moved, and that's just temporary anyway. But I'm going to start putting network equipment in, and I have all of these nuts. They're I want to call them cage nuts, but I don't think they're called cage nuts. But anyway, they just clip on. I don't know if anybody's ever seen these before. Ugh, camera work bad. They just clip on with two little hooks into whatever space you want to use. So they just clip in there like that, and then you can just put your server equipment or whatever in there. I personally prefer racks that have every U measured out, so it makes it a little bit easier. But for now, it looks like they measured every 3 U. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Looks like every 3 U there's one of these arrows. So what I'm going to do is figure out where I want to put my network switch. I'll put in the cage nuts to go in place where I want it, and then mount up the network switch. So let's do that. Okay, so I took out all the cage nuts they had in before, and they had this weird, probably cable organizer loop or whatever. But I'm going to put my network switch up top here. The network switch is only 1U, so I put in my cage nuts for a 1U, and I left a 1U space up at the top. So if I ever put in a patch panel or something, I have room for that. This is the main line coming from the house. So I temporarily measured that out, so I know that it should fit, work properly. So I'm going to mount the network switch now. Alrighty, network switch is in place. I can finally use this switch. Words are hard. I've only had this switch for probably about 2 weeks or so. Got it used off of eBay. It's HP switch, PoE, full gig. I'm a big Cisco fan. So this is my first HP switch. I did test out the console port and test out the command line, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. And then once I get it in place, I'll toy with it more. But anyway, I have to mount the server now. I don't have the original rails for the server. I thought I brought them with me when I decommissioned it from work. So the rails that it has kind of clip into these 3 little posts on the side of the server, and then you slide it into a bigger rail, and then they collapse and everything together. It's a decent rail setup. I just forgot to take it with me, apparently. Anyway, I have these generic rails that I might be able to use because they act like a shelf. So you mount them in, and then the server just sits on this beam that goes across the side of it. Ooh, bad camera work, I'm sorry. So it just sits across that beam. The server will just sit there and act like a shelf. I'm going to try to use these. If not, may have to come up with a solution until I can bring the rails home. So I'm going to try that now, and see how this works. Alright, so as you've seen in the video, the rails weren't working right, so I set it on the shelf. Well, considering these are the only rails that I have right now, and I would like to put the server in place, I came up with a temporary solution. I'm just going to put a board across it for right now. Once I get the proper rails, I'll mount it correctly, but this should be sturdy enough, and it will work for now. That's not how you do it in the data center, but for my shop lab, I don't care, and it will work. So I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod and put the server in. Okay, I have the server in there, and I put the automatic transfer switch in. I don't have ears for it. Surprise. So that's a follow-up item. Battery backup units in there as well. So now we need to provide power. So my plan is this outlet right here is line power. I'm going to move it over to here-ish. I also need a circuit that is dedicated for the network rack that is solar. So I need to install that as well. So let's get started on that. Okay, that was a little long-winded, but hopefully I cleaned that up in editing and you guys didn't have to see as much as I had to do. But two outlets out here now, so solar, and then line power, which is AEP, which is my provider. So now I can hook up the transfer switch. What I currently have is source A on the transfer switch is solar. Source B on the transfer switch is AEP. So let's plug this in. Boom. You can see transfer switch is now powered on. It switched to solar, which is the preferred source. Let's turn on the battery backup. That's on now. Now we just have to plug in the server. Woohoo! Obviously, I'm gonna Velcro strap these in and everything, and I'm going to go ahead and plug everything in. Yay, it's booting up. I can do a little bit more cable management. I'm probably going to do a lot of more cable management. I have a lot of wires up here that I need to tidy up yet. And then I'm going to go through and Velcro a lot of this stuff to clean it up a little bit. And I might put like a clip or something here because of the metal beams there from the shop structure. So I might put like a clip or something, keep that up there so it's not dangling down. But yeah, the reason why I ran the network switch directly to the solar is I want it always running off the solar. This thing takes up barely any power. I don't feel like I need to have it automatically switching to and from line power. So it's always going to be on solar. Server is currently on solar. You can see that because source A is the output of this. So we have the server running off power right now. I still need to run the Batrium USB and the solar charge controller USB. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, so I plugged in the USB. I had to use an extension, and I'll probably end up buying another extension because this one is kind of tight, and I'd rather plug it into the back anyway. This way the front is clear. For right now, it's fine. Probably put a clip there or something. Probably put another clip here or something. I'll tidy it up a little bit better, but it's off the shelf. And it's a start of something very good, and it's going to be very nice when it's done. And I got to keep reminding myself this is in my shop and not a data center where I can control the environment more. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. We have the network switch, server, everything in the rack. I can open it up full swing. I have room for the next battery shelf here. And I think it's going to look nice. Woohoo. Thanks for watching, everyone. I do appreciate it. If you like this video, if you like this video, please press the thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I've also been posting a lot of stuff on my Patreon. My Patreon page, and I'm trying to keep updates on there, little sneak peeks and everything of upcoming videos. So check that out. Do appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks.